There it is. All right, we're going to go ahead and call the meeting to order. 5:17 p.m. We are conducting interviews for three commissions: the Measure P Oversight Committee, Police Oversight and Accountability Commission, and Surveillance Advisory Board. Go ahead and call the meeting to order. And 5:17 p.m. We are conducting interviews for. Do we need to do a roll call, or can we just invite in our first applicant? Police Oversight and Accountability Commission and Surveillance Advisory. All right, present are myself, Councilmember Gordon, Councilmember Palmares, and Councilmember Matias, just so we know for the record who's here. All right, let's go ahead and bring in our first applicant, which is Wayne Goodman, applying for Measure P Oversight Committee, District 6. Hi, Mr. Goodman, how are you doing? Thank you for being here. Thank you for being early. We are the subset of council conducting the interviews for our commissions this evening, and since you are in District 6 for Measure P Oversight, Councilmember Gordon is going to be asking your questions this evening, and we just want to thank you again for being here.
Okay.
Good afternoon. I want to first of all, again, like our mayor said, thank you so much for taking the time to be here. We appreciate you. And we're just going to ask you a couple of questions. If you need me to repeat them, please feel free to ask. And my name is Helen Marie Cookie Gordon. I'm the City Councilwoman for District 6. And so, as you're probably aware, I'm newly elected, so I look forward to working with you.
Not that it helps me, but I did vote for you.
What? Thank you for telling me that. So I'm reaching out. The questions I have for you is, have you ever, let me go to this. Why do you want to be a commissioner for this particular subject?
Sure. I've lived in Vallejo for over 25 years now, and I've always been involved. Oh, sorry. Better? Yes. Okay. So I've lived in Vallejo for over 25 years, and I've always been involved in community, whether it has been the music theater or local governance. I've sat on the county civil grand jury 7 times in the last 15 years, 3 times as foreperson. I've met some of you. And I'm a retired registered nurse, and during the pandemic, I volunteered with the county to help get people vaccinated at the mass events around the county. I have also served on the McCune Collection Commission, so I've successfully done the Brown Act training session. I forget what that's called, the packet where you have to go through to demonstrate that you know the rules about public meetings. So I've done that in the past as well. I was happy to see that they've split this up into districts now, so it's not a citywide thing. I applied once years ago, but there were so many applicants, and I figured, oh, well, it's just District 6. I'll give it a shot.
Thank you for answering the question. I appreciate you. Can you please describe what you believe a community policing is or should be?
I'm sorry, I thought this was participatory budgeting.
No, this is police oversight. Measure P oversight.
But I could still talk about that.
Oh, no. Let me go back to the right ones. So this would be here. Sorry about that. I apologize. Thank you so much for that. Okay, let's go back. We already answered the first question now, okay? It's the same one here too.
Right.
Why did you apply for Measure P Oversight Committee? And what do you hope to accomplish by your participation?
Well, I know that this has been an ongoing project in the city. We adopted this through a ballot measure years ago. And is it Measure G, I think? I can't remember. Or Measure P, duh, it's right in the name. And every year there's an allotment of money that is set aside for this group of people to decide as a community, what do we want to do with this money? And although I don't have a personal interest in it, I have successfully been in meetings and chaired meetings and facilitated meetings, and I would see that my role would be finding out what the group of people that I would represent wanted and bring that to the table.
Thank you so much. And so what do you hope to accomplish by your participation?
Representing the people that I represent and espousing their wishes as to what to do with this pot of money and how it would best benefit the most citizens in our district.
Thank you for that. You had to ask questions? It's just me? Okay, I didn't know that. Okay, thank you. Tell us about your experience in working with team like this committee, and what do you learn from your experience?
Sure. Well, like I said, I've sat 7 times on the civil grand jury in this county, and bit of a commercial, anybody who's near retirement, which is none of you, I always ask people to think about doing this because it's a nice step down from 40 plus hours a week to 0, and this is a nice way. So you really learn a lot about yourself when you have to meet with 18 other people and decide what's best for the county. How do we go out and investigate for the people? Is the money being spent properly? Are people doing what they're supposed to be doing? That's the job of the civil grand jury, looking for efficiency and effectiveness in the county. And it's a very diverse county, and Vallejo is a very diverse city, and sometimes it's difficult to navigate a group of people to find what they want, because many times they walk into a room not knowing what they want until the discussion starts. And so I'm a trained facilitator, and that's what I've been skilled and experienced at, is facilitating discussions amongst people to come to a consensus and help them find some kind of unified answer to a question.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that. What do you feel are some of your key issues facing the city in the next 5 to 10 years?
How long do we have? Okay, well, because I have had the experience of investigating the city of Vallejo as a grand juror, I do have more insight, I think, than to most people. But as far as budgetary, there are many programs now that are on the chopping block, and most of you here have to go through some very tough choices with a decreasing budget and deciding what is the most effective use of the money for the most good for the most people in the city. And I don't, like I said, I don't have an agenda about this. I know there are a lot of people and a lot of agencies that could use money. And what I see that I would do would be to facilitate the group of people that I represent to find out where they think the best use of the money would be. I mean, there are potholes. We need more police officers. We need after-school programs. We need community health clinics. There are lots of things. I mean, those are just 4 I pulled off the top of my head.
Thank you for that. Do I have enough time to ask one more question? We're good.
Oh,
Well, is there anything you want to say, just in general?
thank you for meeting with me. I wish I had had a chance to meet you before. I've known all your predecessors since I've lived here.
And I forgot to introduce myself when you came in. I was so concerned with just getting to the interview. It's very
Oh,
nice to meet you.
Thank you, thank you. No, it's a pleasure, and it's good to see you again, all of you. And you know, I look forward to serving on the commission.
Thank you so much for your time. We appreciate you, and I hope
Okay.
you have a great evening.
Thank you, you too.
Thank you, sir.
Okay.
When they can hear back, we're making these appointments slated for May 13th. All right, so we're going to invite in our next applicant, which is Carl Miller, who is also applying for Measure P, District 6. All right, good evening. All right, welcome, Mr. Miller. Thank you so much for being here. for your interest in the commission. So I'm the new mayor of Vallejo, Andrea Source. I'm joined here by council members Gordon, Palmares, and Matias. And we have you as a candidate for Measure P Oversight Commission for District 6. And since Councilmember Gordon represents District 6, she will be conducting the interview this evening.
Good evening. How are you doing today?
Fine, how are you?
Fine, thank you. Can you do me a favor and speak into the mic there for me? Thank you, because for the TV audience, online audience, excuse me. So as was said, my name is Helen Marie, AKA Cookie Gordon. I am the newly elected city councilwoman for District 6. And so I get to ask questions, and if you need me to repeat them, please feel free to ask, okay? All right. My first question is, have you participated in local government in a committee member, commissioner, city council member, or staff? If yes, what was your role and what did you learn from it?
You know, this is the first time, if it's my first time I've accepted, this will be the first job I would have. I've never participated in any committees, no.
Okay, all right. So this is you,
It'll be the first time, yes.
right on. Congratulations. Why did you apply for Measure P Oversight Committee, and what do you hope to accomplish in your participation?
Well, I applied for it because I started my own business a couple years ago. So I have my own business of, I sell bakery goods. And I'm really interested in the how things work now, because now that I pay taxes on business taxes and everything else, I want to know how the thing operates. I'm really curious about the inner workings of the city council and the city itself, how it works. And what I hope to accomplish is to have a deeper understanding of how this relationship works with the people and the city council. Because it seems to me like there's somebody have a position where there's a divide between the two, and I don't know why it is, but they think that the people that run the government, or the city rather, they're separate from the actual people that live in the city. So, and it's not always the case, but I'd like to have a deeper understanding of what's going on, and my role actually as a citizen.
Thank you. And my third question is, how do you think you could, no, I'm sorry, what do you feel are some of the key issues facing the city in the next 5 to 10 years?
Well, absolutely. It'd be the crime is one, and I think our infrastructure is another one as well. Our roads need to be fixed. We have some places, there's potholes of the whole entire city actually, and that they need addressed. So I think the two biggest ones are crime and the infrastructure of the city, the roads and so forth. So.
Thank you. And my last question to you is, tell us about your experience working with a team like this committee or any committee that you've ever been part of, and what did you learn from your experience?
Well, I've been doing billing and coding for doctors for the past 20 years. So I was in compliance with helping them make sure that the correct codes, also enacting the mandates for Medicare and Medicaid for their offices. So the biggest thing I learned was how to be patient and how to listen more, to listen and try to see the other side as well. Because my position was to make money for the doctors and make sure we're in compliance, and their position was to see patients. It was a constant struggle, but I was trying to be more of a colleague and not an adversary.
Thank you. I appreciate your time. If you do anything you would like to ask us or say to us a little bit more about yourself.
Well, actually, no. I'm just being new to the whole politics stuff. I was reading the information, and so the job itself, basically, as an oversight committee, our job would be to sit on the meetings or to sit on when the people make this when they make decisions on the certain bills or whatever. I'm not quite sure what this role would entail. I have this stuff here, the information, but I don't. It's kind of vague as to what we'd be doing for the person on the committee itself, rather.
Yeah, so we have Councilmember Matias here, who is the council liaison to the committee. If you want to answer that.
For sure. Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Councilwoman Gordon. So the Measure P Oversight Committee is a body that for the first time the city of Vallejo has to provide oversight over $18 million in revenue that voters approved in 2022. It's been 3 years now. And so part of what this body does is make recommendations to the Vallejo City Council as to whether or not to approve, deny, or alternatively suggest some action on the expenditures that are being proposed by staff. And so in addition to attending those meetings to assess those proposals that are being submitted by staff members, you guys also get a presentation at the end of the year from our auditors to ensure that the monies were spent in accordance with the priorities that were defined and outlined by the Vallejo City Council. And so part of that committee's charge, in addition to the duties that I've outlined, is also to have an open hearing in relation to that audit report to make sure that the public is aware of what is really going on with their taxpayer monies.
So we would work with the city council and the people in the committee, and we'd sit there and I guess we make, I don't know, we'd hear the information, then we make our observations, and we'd recommend something at that point? Okay.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that. Thank you so much for your time. I appreciate you. You will hear from us by May 13th, okay? Thank you so much for your time. Have a wonderful day.
You're up, yeah, you're gonna be up. We can keep rolling. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, y'all wanna keep rolling? Yes. Yeah. I'm just looking specifically at you, 'cause is Robert Schussel, applicant for the Police Oversight and Accountability Commission for District 1. And we'll give him a minute to walk in.
I need to talk to you about other matters.
All right, good evening, Dr. Schussel. How are you
Thank
doing?
you for having me here.
I don't know that we have met in person,
No,
although we
we-
have emailed much.
Yes.
So it's very nice to meet you in person. I'm Mayor Andrea Source. I'm joined here by council members
Well,
Helen
I-
Marie Gordon,
I know
Charles
all three
Palmares,
of you,
and
yes.
Alex Matias. Wonderful. And you are in District 1, so Councilmember
Yes.
Matias is going to be conducting the interview
Okay.
this evening for the POAC.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Dr. Schussel, for submitting an application. I know you have a very long history of service to the city of Vallejo, and it really means a lot to this body to have you reapply again. I'm going to ask 3 questions,
Sure.
and I'm going to begin with the following. What qualities or experience would you bring that would be an asset to the Police Oversight and Accountability Commission?
I have several. One of them, people need to understand, most of my career
Yeah, there you go.
was spent as a researcher. And as a researcher, you have to get rid of your personal biases, because you could cost your client or your customer a lot of money if you let your own personal biases come in. And I think maybe the best example that I can use here of what happened in the city, I was the vice chair of the Public Safety Advisory Committee. And this was around the time that some of the murders were starting to occur that people were getting upset about. And so the town thought that some of us who were being appointed were there to be anti-police, but that wasn't why I was appointed. I was there to try to do the right thing, and the right thing in this case that I was asked to do was to, for example, first to come up with speakers. And so I found the best practices in the whole Bay Area, and that's who I brought. And I think people were kind of surprised that some of these people were saying things that they had never heard, like what volunteers were doing up in Vacaville and things. And one of the things that I think, I just put it out there for maybe later, is that we even brought in the lawyer who represented the Vallejo Police. And one of the things that he spoke about was he thought the pendulum had swung too far in the direction of the police's rights. And that was kind of a surprise to me, that even their own lawyer 10 years ago felt that way. And the other thing I think that happened on that committee, we had a liaison from the police department, and I think initially he thought we were all out to get the police. And over time, he and I actually developed a friendship. And so I think that's the kind of qualities that I bring to these things, plus the fact that I think I know how to ask a lot of questions, and that's important because a lot of times there's things you think you know, but you really don't know them. And the other thing is to come in with facts and not your opinions. And so I hope that answers your question.
Thank you, Dr. Schussel. The next question I have is, what is your approach, and you may have already alluded to this in your last response, but what is your approach to understanding the perspectives of community members from different backgrounds?
Okay. When, as part of this committee, one of the things that we did afterwards, the Department of Justice came in and they were doing these focus groups and things with the community members, and I was involved in that. And we tried to go into the communities that I think were most affected by what they saw was negative practices and things and harassment and things. And I think what was sad about that to me was that the city management at that time, I don't think they understood what the minority community really was feeling. They had come from Marin, most of the administration at that time. And I think the issues that were brought up by the minority communities, they couldn't relate to, and so they dismissed them. But most of my career, I've always found that you got to listen to the customer, because what the customer thinks is often very different than what the management thinks. And if you just make assumptions, you're going to normally be wrong. So what I try to do is ask as many questions, listen to people, because you know what? Sometimes they say something that surprises you, and they have a viewpoint that you had never thought about, and you need to adapt that or at least embrace it some, because they're coming from a different place, and you have to understand the place that they're coming from.
Thank you for that. And my last question is the following. So, in what ways do you believe you can support the Vallejo Police Department in responding to the needs of the community?
Well, I think some of the things that need to be done is, this city has had a history of kind of poor relations between the public and the police department over the years. And I think one of the things is that you have to try to work with their liaisons and things initially to convince them that you're there to help, not to tear them down, not to say that they're bad or anything, but to work with them. And I think, the kinds of things like with use of force and recruiting and training and pursuit policies, you need to be fair. And I think that's one of the words that sometimes it gets lost. It's got to be fair to both parties. If it isn't, it's not going to work. And you have to understand where they're coming from. I used to talk to police officers, and it was interesting to hear their view on things. And sometimes things that you thought were one way maybe weren't that way, and so you had to change the way you were going to deal with it. I think there's a lot of policies, about body cameras and drones and all of those things that need to be worked out so that it's fair to everyone, and that it doesn't infringe on people's rights, and yet it gives the officers some tools to do their job better. And finally, I just think there's a whole lot of things that need to be done to get this committee going. And if I could go through a real quick list, because what concerns me, if you started today, I don't think that committee can be up and going for a year or more because of all the things that need to be done. I think you got to provide education to the community and target youth. I don't understand why there isn't a youth member on there. Specifically, if you read the declaration, it's right in there that there's supposed to be a member 18 to 25. And I think that's a critical thing, because those people have a different perspective on the police, and you need to really understand that, because they have probably more interactions a lot of times. You need to elect a chair. You need a commission secretary. And I think most critically, I don't understand why there isn't a schedule with dates for training. You need to create bylaws. On the Planning Commission, I helped spearhead that effort. If you look at the Planning Commission's bylaws, I was involved in that, and I'm really proud of that. I think we kind of set the tone for the way other commissions needed their bylaws changed. The city needs to help the committee hire an independent auditor, and I think that's going to take a while. And I'm sure if people do it right, the police ought to have some say. They don't want someone who's, I think, grandstanding or going to be very negative towards them. And then I think we need to do things with the community first to get their priorities, and then determine how to create an access to fair hearings. That is so critical. Because the community may see access very differently than you or I see access. And what is it that they want? I think there needs to be a website for complaints, and that website also has to provide information about the commission and what's going on and things so that people can keep in touch. And I think what's critical about that is they need to develop a process that the commissioners have email addresses and phone numbers that are city ones, that you can call them, and then there needs to be a process to keep people anonymous if they want to be anonymous. Because I think that's, when we were, even 10 years ago, that's one of the big problems. People were afraid of retribution. Whether it was valid or not doesn't matter. That's the way they perceived it. And I do hope that they use the council chambers and broadcast all the meetings. And finally, it may sound like a little thing, but to develop things like a windbreaker and IDs and other things. When I created the volunteer code enforcement, we did that. And it was interesting. You would see guys come out of their houses, and then when they saw that, it changed the way that they perceived us, because they understood we were the city. And I think that's really important. If you're going to have these people do investigations, I think people need to feel they know who they're dealing with, and that it's safe to talk to those people.
Thank you so much, not just for applying, but for your answers this evening. We will be making decisions on May 13th, right? Is that right, Mayor? And so expect to hear from us one way or the other then.
Okay,
Thank you so
very
much for joining. Have a good evening.
Tell Ms. Schussel that Ms. Cookie said hi.
Okay. I miss you from the school board. Take care, everyone.
We're going to continue.
Dr. Hempel 10 minutes early and ended.
Okay,
10 minutes
perfect. Well,
early.
this.
Yes, I'm,
Okay,
keep an eye too and let me know.
I'll have a timer.
Yeah. Oh, I didn't have my mic on. We were talking about making sure we stick to time. Welcome. Could you share with us how to pronounce your first name so I don't mispronounce
I know,
it?
she just asked me, did I get your name right? So it's Rami. It's
Rami.
just like mommy.
All right, it's Rami Qualls. Thank you so much for being here. This is an applicant for the Police Oversight and Accountability Commission for District 1. My name is Andrea Source. I'm the new mayor of Vallejo. I'm here with council members Gordon, Palmares, and Matias. And since you are in District 1, Councilmember Matias is making your appointment, so he'll be conducting asking the questions this evening.
All right.
Good evening to you, and thank
Good
you
evening.
for applying to serve on this very important commission for our city. I'm going to ask you 3 sets of questions, and then you're more than welcome to share out any additional information after that. I'm going to start with, what qualities or experience would you bring to the Police Oversight and Accountability Commission?
a concerned citizen. Think that, you know, everybody that is a civil servant needs to be held accountable for their actions. I would bring confidentiality, because I have worked in healthcare and I understand about the confidentiality, the secrecy about certain information, certain documents. I'm also currently the foreperson of the grand jury for Solano County, the civil grand jury. So I have that experience. June will be ending my second term. And off the top of my head, I think that's it. I'm very nervous, so.
Don't worry about it.
You gotta give me a little bit of grace.
You're fine. You're fine. Thank you. So my second question, I'm more than happy to repeat it, is what is your approach to understanding the perspectives of community members from different backgrounds?
In my job, I retired from Contra Costa County Health Services, 30 years there, worked with the indigent population, which required me to inmates, homeless people, sick people, undocumented people, learn to be compassionate, fair, understanding always. And even though there are usually certain guidelines and certain ways that you're supposed to look at things, not every person fits exactly into that. And some people may be a little to the right of that, some may be a little to the left of that. So for me, I always tried to be fair to everybody, regardless of their background.
Thank you for that. And then my final question is, in what ways do you believe you can support the Vallejo Police Department in responding to the needs of the community?
Just to listen, to understand the assignment, to understand their role, their perspective, and actually how they handled the encounter that they were faced with. So just to be a good listener and try to be fair on all sides.
Alrighty, thank you. Is there anything else you want to share with this body before we close?
I don't think so.
Okay. Well, once again, I'd
That
want to
was
thank you
painless.
for applying, for your service to our community and to our county. And we, as a body, will be making decisions on May 13th, so you should be
Okay.
hearing from us shortly thereafter, one way
Okay.
or the other. Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good evening.
All right, have a great night.
Thank you. Very nice to meet you. is a Measure P Oversight Committee District 6 applicant, Pamela Porter. Good evening, Ms. Porter. How are you doing? Well, we'll let you get seated. We got to start just by thanking you for your application and your interest in the committee. So I'm Andrea Source, the new mayor of Vallejo. I'm joined by council members Gordon, Palmares, and Matias. And since you're applying in District 6, Councilmember Gordon is making that appointment, so she's going to be asking the questions this evening.
Hello and good afternoon. Thank you for coming out. I truly appreciate you taking this time to want to be part of the solution. As was said, my name is Helen Marie, aka Cookie Gordon. I am the newly elected city council woman for District 6. And so I want to thank you for your time again. So I'm going to ask you 4 questions and just ask if you need me to repeat them again, okay? All right.
Absolutely.
Let's get into it. Have you participated, oh, sorry, no, I did not ask you that. Why did you apply for Measure P Oversight Committee? And what do you hope to accomplish by your participation?
I applied because I want to be a part of the solution. I want to be a part of seeing Vallejo at its best. I think I could say it that way. I was born and raised here, so this is my home. I was away for some years, and then I've been back since I retired in 2018. I had left. I was in Georgia and came back in 2018. And things have changed a lot, but I just think that we could do a lot more to make this a better place to live and to grow and to be safe. And I'm retired, and I have the time to do it now. You know, people are always like, I wish we could do this, or I wish somebody would do that, or whatever. My children are raised. I'm retired. I have the time to spend doing my part. And so that's basically the answer.
Thank you so much for that. How do you think you could balance, oh no, that's not what's, I apologize. What do you feel are some of the key issues facing the city in the next 5 to 10 years?
Whoa, homelessness, our safety. Everyone knows that the police department doesn't have enough staff. And so I'm concerned that when you call the police, that they're not going to be able to come all the time, or when you need them. I'm concerned that when you call 911 and you need medical assistance, that you be able to get somebody, that the major resources that we need are available to everyone who needs them. And then by the same token, we have such a homeless population problem. People don't like to look at it and don't like to talk about it, but it's there, and we need to start doing something about it. Obviously, it's not going to change overnight, but if we don't start, then it's never going to change. So I'm thinking, like, you know, the safety and the medical issues, the homelessness, affordability of housing, available housing.
Thank you so very much. I appreciate it. Is there anything that you would like to share a little bit more about yourself, or any concerns or questions you may have?
Well, for the last 10 years prior to my retiring, I was I worked for the state of Georgia, and we performed inspections of facilities to assure compliance to state and federal regulations. I also responded to complaints. And when I did, we had the authority and the ability to go and see and ask questions and do things to right issues that existed that other people couldn't see. And I felt like that was a great responsibility that I had to the public, that I was there and I could do a thorough job and I could do something to improve their lives, or to make sure that they were safe when they assumed that they were when they walked into a hospital or into an outpatient facility. I enjoyed that, not because of the authority, but because I could be the eyes and ears for someone else. I could ask the questions that needed to be asked. And I was very thorough at it, and I really enjoyed it. And I hope that I can be of service to Vallejo in the same way, that, you know, I'm not afraid to get into it, and I'm not afraid to do what needs to be done. And I look forward to being able to do that, if not with this committee, in some way.
Thank you so very much. I appreciate you taking the time out to be wanting to be part of the solution. And we will hopefully get back to you by May 13th.
Okay.
And I want to thank you again. I hope you have a wonderful evening.
Thank you. You too.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Daryl Conley, applicant for Measure P Oversight Committee in District 4. Good evening. You're all good. It's a really awkward long walk from the door, so we'll just let you get settled in. All right. Well, we want to thank you for your interest, your application, for taking the time to come here tonight for the interview. So you know me, but I'm Andrea Source, Mayor, joined by council members Gordon, Palmares, and Matias. And since you've applied for District 4, Councilmember Palmares is doing the appointment and will be asking the questions this evening.
Okay, I'm ready.
Thank you for applying. Before we begin, I'd like to preface with the following. One, I will only ask one two-part question, and you'll be allotted roughly 2 minutes to answer. And the second thing is, for the sake of transparency, I'd like to publicly state that I know Mr. Conley. And here's the question. In your opinion, what are the materially distinguishable characteristics between an appropriate and an inappropriate use of Measure P money? And what is your methodology for deciding on an item that blurs the line?
Okay, could you read the first part again?
Sure. In your opinion, what are the materially distinguishable characteristics between an appropriate and an inappropriate use of Measure P money?
Okay, so I believe the Measure P was first designated for specific things. Even though it was a general fund, we knew it was going to be for roads, homeless, some other topics. Appropriate would be for those sort of topics. Inappropriate would be for spending money through the Measure P when the money could come from other sources. And I guess.
Okay. And then the second part is, what is your methodology for deciding on an item that blurs the line?
So in my line of work, I'm a quality manager, and it's my job to find some efficiency. It's my job to find areas where we can use some improvements. So I would approach my decisions on Measure P with that in mind. And I would approach it in a way that makes, I can't even find the words to use here. I done lost my train of thought. What's the question again? Sorry.
What is your methodology for deciding on an item that blurs the line between appropriate and inappropriate
What's my
use of Measure P money?
methodology? It's hard to put this in words. Well, in our methodology in quality is where, we're trying to find improvements, but we also have tools to help us root cause and also help us to find the areas of improvements, okay? So my methodology would be towards, is this appropriate, inappropriate, and how will it benefit the city? How spending this money would be a beneficial thing.
Okay. That's all the questions I have, and thank you for applying.
Okay. All right,
That's
thanks.
it. Thank you.
right, I think we're ready for our next applicant, which is Stephen Paschalk for Surveillance Advisory Board District 1. And they cannot hear me, but we can wave. We are ready whenever you are. Manny's gonna help us out.
Dawn, we're ready.
All right, good evening. Welcome. All right, while you get settled, I'll just announce again. So we're now interviewing for Surveillance Advisory Board District 1. We have Mr. Stephen Paschalk here, a current commissioner on the SAB. So you know me, but I'm Andrea Source, now mayor. I'm here with council members Gordon, Palmares, and Matias. And since you are in District 1, you have Councilmember Matias representing you, and he will be making the appointment and asking the questions this evening.
Okay.
So thank you again. We appreciate your interest and that you came out tonight for the interview.
Okay.
Mr. Paschalk, again, thank you so much for submitting an application and most importantly for serving your community. So I have 3 questions, and you'll have an opportunity also to share out some information after that with us. And I'm going to start with the following. What is, in your opinion, the role of the Surveillance Advisory Board and how it functions with the Vallejo City Council?
Okay. I see it as advisory. Of course.
If you could come just a little closer to the mic or move the mic maybe a little.
I see it as advisory. Of course, City Council has a broader view of things, and they have a lot more things to consider. So, I believe in giving good advice. Within the parameters that were given. But there's other things such as budget considerations and everything like that that are a council concern, not really a Surveillance Advisory Board. I see the Surveillance Advisory Board as being concerned with privacy issues, effectiveness, and just overall, does this provide security or slow down traffic or whatever the surveillance method is designed to do. So we give advice, based on that, and I'm sure council would consider it, and take into account, the bigger picture items, that they're privy to and you have to deal with.
Thank you for that. My second question is the following. Can you please tell us how you would address the issues of social justice and equity in your position as a Surveillance Advisory Board member?
Okay. Very important, and was one of the main reasons I was interested in the position. One of the things that we really have to be concerned with is that these methods don't have a adverse impact, a disproportionate impact on certain communities. For example, I've read about, there's a lot more false positives on, camera technology with, African Americans than there are with whites. That's something that has to be considered. Because you don't want to, of course, disproportionately impact somebody, and you certainly don't want to, get somebody that's not a bad guy. And one of the things, and that I see as a major part of the Surveillance Advisory Board is, making sure that the technology is used in a fair manner. We don't want to say, if you're looking for red light runners, we don't want it all in, one certain area of town where we'll get a disproportionate number of of people that, just happen to live there. And, while other areas of town, hey, you can run the red lights all you want, like in Law District 1. So, that's something that, I do consider, whenever I have something. So, whenever I'm considering something.
Thank you for that. And correctly pointing out, we've got some work to do in District 1 around that.
Yeah.
And then my final question is, what do you see as the biggest challenge for local governments in the next 5 years? This is a two-part question. So the first part is, what do you see as the biggest challenge for local governments in the area of surveillance in the next 5 years? And then what changes do you think cities need to do to be cutting edge and ready to respond to those challenges?
Okay. For the first part of the question, the biggest challenge that we have is that we don't overuse it, don't see it as a panacea. It's very tempting, especially when there's a lack of officers to, we'll just use the eye in the sky, and and that'll replace 8 officers. The technology has its place, but I don't see it replacing the officers in the street, and it's very tempting to do that. I saw that when I was working. You have special agents huddled over their computer all day, inputting stuff and everything, because it was comfortable. You didn't have to go out and deal with the public, but the problem is there's no crimes or happening in the office. That has its place, but it tends to be overused, I think. And that's something that we have to be careful with. And the second question was,
I can definitely repeat it. So, what changes do you think cities need to do to be cutting edge and ready to respond to the challenges that you've just outlined?
okay, it would help, obviously, if there were more people out there doing the job, but that may or may not happen. I don't know about the budget situation, and overall the biggest problem that I think any governmental entity is facing right now is budget. But to be cutting edge, it would help to have people know what they're doing, know how to effectively use the material, use the equipment that they have, and from the interaction I've had, with the Vallejo PD in the meetings is, they're bright people, and you need to invest in those bright people to train them so that they can effectively use it while not over-relying on it. So I guess, the big thing would be just to, make sure that you give your good people the tools to use the equipment. So.
Thank you for that. Really appreciate not just your time this evening, but also your willingness to serve. We're going to be making decisions on May 13th, and so you should be hearing from this body shortly thereafter as to whether or not you were selected to continue serving in the SAB.
Just so you know, and whatever the decision is fine with me. I'll be out of the country then, so if whether I'm selected or not, I'm not ghosting you if I don't respond right away. So, but I will when I get back.
We'll make sure to follow up. I did forget to ask you one question I have asked this evening, which is there anything else you may want to share with us that perhaps you weren't able to share with the other questions that I asked?
Not really. I think my application, covers what my background is and everything. No need to, beat that dead horse.
Sounds good. Thank you
no,
so
I'm
much. Thanks again, and I hope you have a good evening.
All right, thanks a lot.
And enjoy your vacation.
Okay, yeah.
So we have one more applicant for the Surveillance Advisory Board for District 1, and that's Russell Owen. And we're going to invite him in right now. All right. Good evening. Mr. Owen, how are you doing? Good. How are you? Excellent. Good. We'll let you get seated. And we always start just by thanking you for your interest in serving, for your application, and for being here, coming in for the interview. So I'm Andrea Source, the new mayor of Vallejo. I'm joined by council members Gordon, Palmares, and Matias. And since you have applied in District 1, Councilmember Matias will be making that appointment, and so he'll be asking the questions this evening.
All right, I'm ready.
Mr. Owen, thanks again for applying and for offering to serve your city. I have 3 questions I'm going to ask.
Sure.
And I'll begin with the first one. So what, in your opinion, is the role of the Surveillance Advisory Board and how it functions with the Vallejo City Council?
Yeah, so my understanding is the city has to make some decisions about selecting an application of technology related to surveillance. And there are some very important, somewhat technical questions that you need to consider when you're making these decisions. And I think you need a way to ask these questions of any vendor you're going to connect with, to make sure that they're giving you answers that make sense, that are truthful, and that you're covering all the things that are going to matter. So I think, by bringing in people with some technical expertise, I'm guessing that that's one of the things you want to be able to do.
Thank you for that. My second question is the following. Can you please tell us how you would address the issues of social justice and equity in your position as a Surveillance Advisory Board member?
Yeah, so I think a lot of the problems with social injustice embedded in these technical systems have to do with the bias in the data that is used to train them, right? So this is becoming a big problem with AI, but even without AI, just systems that have a sort of a biased set of data that is used that creates their view of the world. That view, sort of without being able to be examined, shows up in the behavior of these systems towards the people that are experiencing it, right? We've got examples of early facial recognition systems did very poorly with people with darker skin because all of the training data was white people. So, and that led to, very unfair outcomes of people being identified as having been involved in a crime because of the poor recognition for people who are not well represented in this training data. So that's an example of how the data bias leads to social injustice, right? And then it's tricky because it's embedded in the system, and it's hard to kind of interrogate it and see, like, what is the bias, and but you need to go back to how was this built, what was the set of data used to build it, and can we therefore trust that it's gonna come at these questions of surveillance with an unbiased point of view. So I think that's the core matter.
Thank you. Thank you for that, Mr. Owen. And then my final question, it's a two-parter. So the first part of the question is, what do you see as the biggest challenge for local governments in the area of surveillance in the next 5 years? And then the second part of that question is, what changes do you think cities need to do to be cutting edge and ready to respond to the challenges that you're identifying?
Yeah, I think you're going to see a lot. I mean, we're already seeing what I would describe as military originating technologies filtering down to civilian police work, and I think you've got to have a bit of a skeptical eye towards that transition, right? Those systems are not meant to be used by the civilian on the civilian population, and I think you got to be very, very concerned about that trend, and I think that trend is going to just accelerate as more investment goes into these kinds of technologies. And it's particularly hard when you're buying it from countries that don't have a strong civil rights background as we have here in the United States, right? I mean, we've seen some of that with systems being built and sold to countries with poor civil rights records. So that's one thing. I think, what can you do? I think I really think there's an education. Like, I don't think any of this is magical. Like, I'm happy to bring some technical expertise, but I really hope that when we're done, that people here know how to put the question to these vendors and ask and say, well, now wait a minute, I'm not happy with that answer. So I think that kind of education will hopefully mean that in every case when you're kind of making these decisions, you have a framework to think about, what is reasonable is not when it comes to choosing technology. So.
Thank you for that. Really, really appreciate your responses this evening. And my final question, I was kidding, there's actually 4.
Okay.
Is there any information you haven't shared with this body that you would like to share that perhaps you didn't get a chance to do so in any of the questions I asked before?
I mean, the one other thing that is sort of tangential to this is, I think the risks to people because of these technologies, not used by the government, but used by people, preying on people, that is a big concern, and I think it's going to get worse. And I think this is another area that, while not directly surveillance, it's a risk that comes out of technology and the growth of technology. And I think that's another area that, it's one I'm quite concerned about. So that's sort of related, if that helps.
Thank you so much for that. We're going to be making decisions as a body on May 13th. And so you should be hearing from us shortly thereafter, one way or the other. I again want to thank you for coming out and being a part of this process this evening, and I hope you have a good rest of your week.
All right, thank you so much.
Take care.
All right, thank you so much. Take care. I think we are ready. So we are now going to a group of at-large Surveillance Advisory Board appointments, and our next interviewee is here but distracted, and we will flag him as soon as he looks over here. And that is Adam Bergenzer, who is in District 5 and, again, is applying for the at-large position. Good evening. We'll let you take the long walk down and get settled. All right. Hello. So we want to start just by welcoming you and thanking you for your application and for coming out for the interview and just being part of this process. So I know we already know each other, but I'm Andrea Source, now Mayor of Vallejo. I'm joined by council members Gordon, Palmares, and Matias. And the way that we have been doing this is that the individual making the appointment asks the questions. And so since I am making the at-large appointment, I'll be asking the questions this evening.
Cool.
And the first one that I have for you, I'm going to have three, but one's a two-parter.
Okay.
And the first one is, can you tell us about your qualifications to serve on the SAB and kind of what experience you'd bring and why specifically you were interested in this board?
Sure, absolutely, yeah. So I had the opportunity to serve on this board briefly a few years ago, and so I am interested in having the opportunity to serve on it again. As far as my interest, I've always had a lot of interest in privacy, and some of the work I've done, things I've done outside of work, have been around anonymity and privacy-focused things. So I've been a part of what I would call like the hacking community or the cybersecurity community since I was a kid in the mid-90s. And back then, I was also a part of what we called at the time hacking collectives, but a group of people that did open source and other kinds of work called Chaos Theory. So I released some software around privacy and anonymity, giving people options. And some of that actually fed into things where like now people can release information like whistleblowers to news agencies and stuff using technology very similar to some of the stuff I've worked on. As a part of that, I've also had the opportunity to actually, I built my own, there's a device called a Stingray device that the police use for like cell phone monitoring and stuff. I actually built one myself and played around with it and have built other types of technology that is used by the police. I'm very familiar with machine learning and AI. I've written software for facial detection, audio detection, things like that as a part of my work at Venmo. I wrote some facial detection software that we use, things like that. So I do have a lot of experience in actually building and working with some of the technology that the police is using. So when I first applied, and also now, I'd hope that I'd be able to use my expertise as a part of this board to help people understand what the technology can and can't do and how it could be applied, hopefully provide input to policy and other kinds of things in terms of how the police might use it. In addition to that, I do have over 30 years of experience in the tech industry, in the software industry as an engineer, and also in leadership. So I'm familiar with boards and process as well as technology in general, very familiar with all of that.
Yeah, thank you so much. So you've answered a little bit of the first part of the two-parter that I have, which was, could you share with us a little bit of your knowledge of some of the surveillance devices? And then the second part being, do you have any views on the use of surveillance technology by the police that you want to share with us?
Yeah, so I think that's an important thing, and it's why I'm interested in trying to be a part of the board, because in my personal life, I've always had a perspective of trying to help people be able to be safe and protected from their government or from other entities in terms of being able to find ways around some surveillance technologies and mitigate those impacts, particularly people in resistance and other kinds of capacities. But also, I think it's important to be able to understand how these technologies can be used to help deter and stop crime, which I think is also a very serious problem we have in Vallejo. So I'm very interested in being able to strike a reasonable balance between the two. I'm very much, in the limited time I had on the Surveillance Advisory Board in the past, was very clear about trying to make sure that the police had the tools that they needed to be able to do the jobs that they needed to do, but that also the public had awareness and understanding of how that's used. I always worked hard to try to ask questions with the police to get them to explain in detail how they would use the technology with the knowledge I have of how it could be abused. So asking those kinds of questions and getting that on the public record and trying to also help the public understand that drones or or license plate readers can be used in the following ways, but also have controls, right? Because we live in California, I would assume, but because I grew up in Georgia, but also for other reasons, there are already a lot of things in place that the government has instituted so that they can not be abused in most cases, or it's much more difficult to be abused. And so I also want to make sure that those things remain in place, and also that people are aware of those controls and constraints.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing that. And the last question I have is what do you see as the biggest challenge for local governments in the next 5 years with respect to use of surveillance technology? And I'll ask that, and then the follow-on is going to be, how do you think we can potentially get ahead of that and mitigate those challenges?
Yeah, I think one of the things that I haven't seen a lot of progress, and I was maybe a little more concerned about when I first applied, but I still think is relevant, is actually the use of a lot of these surveillance techniques by the general public outside of the police, whether that's like ring devices that get brought in, or like even in Hidden Brook and other parts of Vallejo where the license plate recording technology is actually available. So like Hidden Brook board has the ability to see all of the vehicles that come in and out of their area, which can be helpful and can also be very harmful. It could even be used to manage or control or influence or put pressure on people from visiting there or other things. So I think it would be important for the city to have more understanding of how that technology is being used by citizens. And I would like to see if the city could have some influence on how that's used, or some ability to have policy in terms of how much people are able to, can people profile who's coming into their neighborhood or not, and things like that. So I think that's one thing, but I also think another thing that's very important is actually being able to find ways to have technology. And again, when I was on the SAB, I felt like the drone use was actually a great example where the police can be more effective with less people using technology.
All right, thank you so much again for your service on the board, for coming
Thank
in
you.
tonight and sharing
Thank you,
your thoughts on these
everybody.
questions. We're going to be making the appointments at the May 13th council meeting, so
Okay.
we'll be in touch with you either way after
Okay.
that.
Yeah.
And just, thank you again.
Thank you for your
for
time.
being here.
Thanks.
Yeah,
I
enjoy the
appreciate
rest
it.
of your evening.
You guys have a good night. Thanks.
Yeah,
See you all.
and. All right, let's go ahead and admit our applicant. And it is Xavier Zamudio, and I'm going to make sure that I'm pronouncing it right if it's in fact Xavier.
Hi, everyone. Yeah, it's Xavier.
All right, we're going to shift the volume real quick. Give us 1 second. All right, good evening. Let's try one more time.
Hello, everyone. My name is Xavier.
All right,
Xavier
just-
Zamudio.
Xavier Zamudio, thank you so much for being here, Mr. Zamudio.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
So my name's Andrea Source. I'm the mayor of Vallejo. I'm joined here by, I know we're kind of sideways on your screen, but I'm joined by council members Gordon, Paul Mares, and Matias. And the way we're doing the interviews this evening is these appointments are made by district. And so the council member making the appointment is asking the questions. And so since you are in District 5, you are applying for the at-large position for the whole city. So I'll be asking the questions this evening. And I'll have three questions for you, really four, because one's a two-parter. And please, if you need me to repeat them or anything, or if we have any issues with the sound or anything like that, we're happy to work through that so that we can make sure we hear all of your answers. So the first question that I have for you is, what qualifications or experience do you have that would serve you on the SAB, and why were you specifically interested in applying for this board?
So first off, thank you for meeting me virtually. I would love to be in person. I fractured my patella last week, so it's been a little challenging moving around the house itself. Um, so yeah, so your first question was, what kind of qualifications do I have for this role? So I'm currently the security manager with the California Academy of Science. So surveillance is a part of my day-to-day responsibilities. Outside of that, I love the city of Vallejo. I believe Andrea Pugh is a new mayor and the new leadership. I believe it's heading in the right direction. Outside of that, I've kind of dug deep in what the city has, what we're using for surveillance, or the Surveillance Advisory Board. And I believe I've got some skills that sometimes a little undermined. For starters, there's some emotional intelligence. This is an at-large position, so it's not just one district, it's gonna be all the districts. And it's important that there's a ability to listen to not just one district, but all of them. Listening to the other board members and bringing everything to the table. That's another one of the skills that I feel that I possess is that ability to work collaboratively with my teammates, coworkers, colleagues. That's a very important skill. And also being able to do our due diligence. This is an important role, not just at large, but the whole board. Everyone has a sense of responsibility. I understand the level of responsibility that's going to be associated with this position, and it's going to require due diligence. It's going to require reaching out to the community. It's going to require talking and working amongst ourselves, gathering all the information we can, and being able to share it with yourself and the rest of the committee. And I think there was a second part of that question. If you don't mind repeating it for me, please.
Yeah, the second part was why specifically did you want to apply for this commission?
Yeah, I didn't realize how many boards and committees we had till earlier in January. I started looking into what was available. I applied for this position because I thought it'd be a great opportunity just to support the people of Vallejo, my district. I really want to see the city grow in a positive direction. And I think that's going to take good people doing good things to build good communities. And I'm working with people of all walks of life. I want to be able to know my neighbors outside of my local community. Everyone can contribute. I want to be able to invite people to these kind of meetings, these committee meetings, and us create a voice for ourselves as a community. And I don't want to. I think that's a very important part of why I want to do this. I want to get to know everybody in that room, and in all aspects of what Vallejo has to offer.
Thank you very much. All right, so my next question is, could you share with us any knowledge that you have or background you have around surveillance technologies that are in use by police and any thoughts you have on the use of those technologies?
Yeah, currently our city uses the mobile audio visual. Those are new cameras that are on the dashboard, on the officers. Think I believe you were part of this committee before and have made recommendations on making sure they were able to use those cameras if they opened up like the gun box. We also have the license plates readers that are spread out all over the city. I believe there's like 80 and 90, and I believe there's more. And I think the city's interested in also rolling out the gun detection technology. And there's good and bad on both, right? I think the interesting thing is every single district you speak with, there's going to be people pro and against. And I think we need to be able to balance, what our civil liberties and our rights are versus public safety. We don't want to compromise public safety because that's very important for us as a community. But we got to make sure we make the ultimate, most educated decision. We gather all the facts. I know that's what we use here, but there's also a lot of other aspects of that, right? There is the technology of AI, face recognition. I know is a big thing. The idea of drones. I believe the conversation may have came up recently within the city, but close here at home, drones are kind of outlawed in other Bay Area cities like San Francisco, Oakland, Berkeley. But there are other cities around the world, around the country that do use drones as part of their local law enforcement. You go down to the border like San Diego, more major metropolitan cities like New York, Miami, Houston, Texas, which we know in the past there has been some interesting conversations when it comes to data protection and sharing that information with the companies that we're sharing that with. So I'm really excited about the technology itself because it's going to continuously evolve. The laws of technology recently have only been started being established probably over the last 10 years. So one thing I'm also looking for is seeing how that changes. Technology that we want to roll out, how the laws are going to protect us with that as well. And I think that's just, it's a huge tool we have. We just need to make sure we're using it appropriately. That we're being smart about it and not just buying all the new cool toys that are available to us, and that the technology that we want to use is going to match what we need here in the city. Sure, we could use the drones, AI, but is that really what we need right now to make our community safer? So, yeah, I'm excited for the technology of what we have and where that's going to go.
Yeah, thank you so much. I appreciate that answer. And you've actually previewed the third question, which is, what do you see as the biggest challenge for local governments in the next 5 years with respect to surveillance technology, and what can we do to respond to those challenges?
Well, one of the biggest challenges right now, I think, for the city is I've lived here in the city of Vallejo for 3 years. And I've talked with my neighbors and people here in the city and restaurants and anywhere you get an opportunity to talk with people. And the reoccurring theme is our local law enforcement. Do we have enough people here? Do we have boots on the ground? I think that's a main challenge we need to focus on. It's cool to have drones, great tool. It's great to have gunshot detection technology. But if we don't have people to go out and check that out, that makes it very challenging, potentially a waste of money. So we really got to build our local law enforcement. We need to be able to promote and bring in good people. Part of this role is also policies and procedures and making sure that we set them up for success. If we're going to get these cool tools, technology, we need to make sure there's a procedure in place for them. So we send them out for success, not just give them the keys to a brand new car and they just got a license. We need to take our time with that. We need to make sure that we're hiring enough staff to monitor our city. I'm aware that we recently, as a city, approved it was a little $10 million or $11 million to the Solano County, and I think that's a good move. I think it's important that we do have folks here that are going to be able to help us and assist us. And I'm sure there will be conversation on what that means and how that's going to work with our local law enforcement. I mean, it's potentially could be a battle, uphill battle, but we need to do what's best for us as people who live here in Vallejo, and for our everybody in the room.
Well, thank you so much. Again, we really appreciate your application, your interest in serving, and being part of this process. We're going to be making the appointments at our council meeting on May 13th. So you'll be hearing from us shortly after that either way. And again, we just want to thank you for your time and your interest in sharing your thoughts with us this evening.
Thank you, Andrea. Thank you, everyone.
Take care. Our next applicant, sticking with the at-large SAB appointment, and all of these applicants are from District 5. We have Eurisha Edmonds, but I don't know. She is here. She's behind a bar. So we'll invite her in.
Yes, you're right. You're correct.
It is a disqualifier?
Here, I've started writing it down, but it's right here.
Answered that before. And you should have answered.
Good evening, Ms. Edmonds.
How are you?
Doing well. Thank you so much for coming in tonight, being part of this process, for your interest in the Surveillance Advisory Board position. So I know we know each other, but I'm Andrea Source, the new mayor of Vallejo. I'm joined by council members Gordon, Palmares, and Matias. And the way we're doing the interviews this evening is these are all district-based appointments. And since you are a candidate for the at-large appointment, which I'll be making, I'll be asking some questions this evening. And I'm going to have 3 questions. A couple of them are two-parters. And then if you need me to repeat anything, any of the two-parters, just let me know. Feel free. The first question is what qualifications and experience do you bring to the Surveillance Advisory Board, and what made you want to apply for this board specifically?
Okay, I have over 30 years of IT experience. I work for the state of California. I started as a service desk tech, working with employees when they're locked out or they need software, their computers need imaging. Before I retired, I did 10 years in Tier 2, where I supported the service desk as well as ordered equipment, ordered software, kept licensing, track of all the license of software, deployed software, reviewed software. So that was majority of what I did. The majority. And service tickets, when anything came in, any type of issues, my job was to take that service ticket, make sure that I reached out with the customer, make sure that their laptops or desktops were working properly, software was installed, everything they needed to do their job, and that was pretty much it. What was the second question?
Yeah, it was why did you want to apply for this board specifically?
Okay, as you stated, we know each other, so I wanted to work with you. When I found out you were running for mayor, I was on board. I was like, what can I do? I want to do something. So when I went through all the different committees, I felt this was the one that would fit me best. So this is the one I decided to definitely apply for.
Thank you so much. So the next question I have is if you could please share any knowledge you have of surveillance devices that are used by police and the thoughts that you have on police use of those technologies.
I think we all know about the technology that's worn on the vest of each police officer. And I think that's the most important software and technology that any city has right now, because you can actually see what's going on. In times where there are complaints or injustices with citizens, you can definitely, you have that camera to review and look at to see if the police officers acted in a way that was proper. And if anything happens, officer-involved shootings, that technology there is important. Being a part of SCLU Solano, we went over cameras, putting cameras in the streets and in different places to, keep an eye on activities that's going on within the city. First thought was, no, I don't think so. I think there will be a privacy issue. Things will go on. As crime escalates, I've had a second thought about that. I think we do need surveillance cameras. I think license plate readers is also something we should look at. I find that it's working well for Oakland and other big cities, and it just may be something Vallejo needs, or at least need to look at.
All right, thank you. So the final question that I have this evening is, what do you see as the biggest challenge for local governments in the area of surveillance technology? And there's going to be a second part to this one as well, which is what can we do to proactively address those challenges?
Okay, ask the first question.
Yeah,
again.
you already touched on it a bit. What do you see
Okay.
as the biggest challenge for local governments in the next 5 years with respect to surveillance technologies?
All technology. I think as we advance, there's different things and tools that we'll need in order to make our streets safer. So the vest-worn cameras are big, street surveillance, as well as license plate readers, and those are the only technologies I can think of at this time. Just making sure that we collect that data is safe, making sure that the people that are chosen to oversee are trained and trained well, and just making sure everything is up to date. Security, patching, whatever that's needed, making sure that all those things are up to date.
Well, thank you so much again for your willingness to serve and for spending this time and sharing your thoughts with us this evening. We're going to be making all of the appointments to boards and commissions at our council meeting on May 13th.
Okay.
So you'll hear from us after that meeting either way.
All right.
So
Thank you
thank
all
you
for your time.
again. Yes, of course. Thank you, and
Okay.
enjoy the rest of your evening.
Bye-bye. Oh, thank you.
All right, so our next applicant, we're still with SAB District, it was District 5 at-large appointment, and we have Ronald Tesno. Am I saying that right?
Yes.
All
For
right.
Ron, if you don't mind.
Ron, all right. Well, thank you so much for being with us this evening, for your interest in the commission and application, and for coming out to the city for the interview. So I'm Andrea Source, the relatively new mayor of Vallejo. I'm joined by council members Gordon, Palmares, and Matias.
Nice to
And
meet you all.
we're conducting all the interviews this evening, and the way that we're doing it is, since these are all district-based appointments for these boards, the council member who is making the appointment asks the questions. So since you're the at-large, applying for the at-large position, I have a few questions for you this
Okay.
evening. And I've got three, a couple of them are two-parters. If you need me to repeat anything at any point, just let me know.
All right.
So the first question I have is, what are your qualifications and experience that you would bring to the Surveillance Advisory Board, and what made you decide to apply to this board specifically?
Well, I became interested in sort of surveillance technologies as I started hearing about them several years ago, and facial recognition. I work in a technological field. I've been a software engineer, database programmer for 3 decades now. My most recent engagement, I've been at a company for over 10 years, but my most recent project is data quality, implementing a data quality tool. Throughout my tenure there, it's a financial company, but I work in the IT department. Been engaged in vendor evaluations, software implementations, you name it. So I think I bring a strong technological background to the position. I'm interested in sort of the technologies that are being deployed, and especially, you know, the use of AI as it sort of the advents and starts to increase in usage. It's coming into my field as well. For example, they're trying to install generative AI into my tools, where business users, even at their level, could speak to the tool and have it create things for them. I noticed, for example, in the Axon body-worn camera system, they sort of have partnered with a company called Trulio that does, apparently from their demos, some really fantastic things with the footage and the audio, the video and the audio that's engaged. So, you know, I think it's enthralling. And so I think I bring sort of a skill set that is, you know, allows me to work with vendors, help evaluate them, you know, pick the best, see which ones are maybe, you know, over-promising, see which ones are providing value for their, you know, return on investment and things like that. So, you know, in addition to that, just basically I've always been sort of interested in science fiction and things like that. So, you know, as surveillance was sort of a thing of a fantasy at first, and now it's becoming a reality. So I just want to make sure that help the city make sure that its decisions on surveillance technologies are made responsibly, ethically, and conscientiously.
Thank you so much for sharing that. And you kind of started touching on the next question I have, which is if you could share your knowledge of surveillance devices that are in use by police departments and any thoughts you have on those devices.
Yeah, so far, I mean, I've done, looked at the city of Vallejo, for example, the Axon body-worn cameras, the Axon in-car cameras, the Flock Raven gunshot detection, Flock automated license plate readers, drones, cell site simulation, took a look at all those things. I think technology definitely has a place in improving not only just our quality of life, but also the safety of Vallejo residents everywhere. So I think it's very important to, look at and evaluate these things and make sure that they are really done in a sort of ethical and conscientious fashion. I think gunshot detection, for example, I hear things going off all the time. Was that a firework or was that an actual firearm? Things like that. Anything that can help our police force, do its job more effectively and more efficiently is definitely helpful. Yeah.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And the last question, it's also a little bit of a two-parter. What do you see as the biggest challenge for local governments in the area of surveillance technology in the next 5 years? And then the second part's going to be what can we do to address those challenges?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think it's important. I think it's a challenge with a lot of vendors out there wanting to push their products, and sell them, and maybe not being totally above board with what they're doing. So I think a challenge is to really suss out which vendors are being authentic, which are providing value, which vendors' products are, actually efficacious and effective in doing what they're promising. I think it's a challenge to make sure that the right selections are made. I think the Surveillance Advisory Board, for example, plays a vital role in providing advice and recommendations on those things as they evaluate them, to make sure that the privacy and rights of our citizens are preserved while still actually serving them and making sure their safety is protected. So I think that's an incredible challenge, and I think there are vendors that are out there that are just ready to go and ready to push them, and it's just sort of a challenge to push back and say we need to make sure that we make the best choice and the right choice. That's one of the big challenges I see.
Thank you so much. We really appreciate your time this evening, the time you put in your application, your willingness to serve. We're going to be making the appointments on May 13th at our city council meeting. So you'll hear from us either way shortly after that.
Okay.
So thank you again. We really appreciate it.
All right. It was a pleasure to meet you all. Thank
you as well. Take care.
All right.
Sandwich, and then we'll get started.
Yeah,
But
no
have a
rush.
seat.
I'm early. Take your time.
You're all good. Can I ask you a question, though? You're Aaron.
Yes, I
Doran.
am.
Very welcome. Very nice to meet you. Would you mind sharing? We don't have your district on here. Would you mind sharing what district you live in?
I believe I'm in District 5.
Okay, that figures. Everyone's been in District 5.
Because I'm
All right.
on Fairmont.
That is 5. All right.
Okay.
That's what I thought. All right. So welcome. Thank you so much for joining us this evening. So I'm Andrea Source, the relatively new mayor of Vallejo. I'm joined by council members Gordon, Palmares, and Matias.
Hi.
And the way that we've been doing the interviews this evening is all the boards we're interviewing for are district appointments. And so the council member making the appointment asks a few questions. And
Got
since you are applying for the at-large seat, I'll be asking a few questions this evening.
Sounds great.
So I have 3 questions. A couple of them are two-parters. So I'll preview the 2 parts, but then if you need me to repeat it, I'm more than happy to. And the first question I have is just what are your qualifications and experience that you would bring to the Surveillance Advisory Board, and what made you decide to apply for this commission specifically?
Yeah. I mean, as far as qualifications, I think the main thing is just having a bit of a technology background and interest in privacy and technology around that. My day job is an amount of working with technical products, specifically in like library software for universities. So not strictly related, but you know, it's always been something that's more in a passing interest kind of thing. And as for the kind of the primary why of why I was interested, really came down to you know, both an interest in the topic and also, you know, I moved to town a few years back and, you know, really like it here and want to be part of the community more and that kind of stuff. And so when I heard about, you know, this advisory board along with the other boards, I like even saw an article talking about like how they need people. Like there's a lot of open space. It was like, oh, this seems like a neat opportunity for me to get involved and sort of, you know, put myself into the community more.
Thank you so much for sharing that. So the next question I have is if you could please share your knowledge of surveillance devices and any thoughts you have on police use of those devices.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the stuff I've been most familiar with is, you know, stuff around like ShotSpotter and the ALPR stuff. I think mostly just because you know, that's sort of the stuff you hear about the most in the news and the like. You know, in terms of thoughts on it, I think it's definitely one of those things where it's like I can see the value and why they are popular, but it feels like when I learn more about them, there's a lot of stuff around the edges that I don't totally love, where it's like, oh, how are they deploying shot spotters and, you know, what neighborhoods, and there's like issues there around like kind of a almost profiling sense when I've seen reporting around that, or, you know, issues where, you know, license plate reader data isn't being secured properly and could possibly be used outside of the scope of the laws of the city using it. And so I think those are a lot of my concerns, is a lot of how it's getting used, how, you know, are they being used the way they're supposed to be? And if they're not, why aren't they?
Thank you. So the next, actually last question we have is, what do you see as the biggest challenge for local governments in the next 5 years in the area of surveillance technology? The second part of it's going to be, what can we do as a city to address those challenges? But what do you see as the biggest challenge we're facing?
You know, funnily enough, I think if I were to think about the biggest challenge, it's almost all the surveillance that exists outside of local government, right? It's the, you know, the everybody, you know, having their location tracked on their phone, right? How is that getting used? Like, you know, what, who has access to that kind of data? And so there's sort of the small bore, like here are the technologies a city would be maybe using, you know, in relationship to their policing and their police department versus, you know, there's this like wider area of surveillance that's occurring that, you know, could be a challenge for local governments, because there's like a, your citizens are being affected by this, but but all of that is existing outside of it. As for what to do about it, when I put it like that, it's sort of a, it feels like a big, well, I don't know. But, you know, I think there's a lot of, I think that's where it gets into like maybe looking at, you know, saying like, okay, we know this exists. What are things, I guess I'm saying, I don't know what are things we can do. That's, I think, sort of a big question I don't have an answer for off the top of my head, but definitely a question I'm like interested in.
Yeah, thank you so much. Appreciate your time,
Yeah.
your interest, your answers, and we are going to be making the appointments at our council meeting on May 13th.
Okay.
So you'll hear from us either way, and we just want to thank you again for your time on the application and your willingness to serve. We truly, truly appreciate it and appreciate you coming in and sharing your thoughts with us tonight.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for, you know, doing all this.
Yeah,
So,
of course.
yeah.
All right. Take care. Enjoy
Yeah,
the rest of
have
your
a great
evening.
night, everyone.
Take care. We are, after an interlude, we have Miss Cohen Thompson, and we will invite her in. It is. Good evening. Thank you so much for joining us. We'll let you walk and get settled in. It looks warm. Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
Here we
All
go.
right. Good evening, Ms. Cohen Thompson. Thank you so much for joining us this evening, for your application, for your interest in serving, and for your service broadly as well in the community. So I'm Andrea Source, the relatively new mayor. I'm joined by, you may know them, but I'll introduce them anyway, council members Gordon, Palmares, and Matias. And we're conducting interviews this evening for 3 commissions that do district-based appointments. And so what we've been doing is having the district representative making the appointment, ask the questions. And in this case, you've applied for their Surveillance Advisory Board in District 3. Councilmember Letajou couldn't make it this evening.
Okay.
But she's going to watch online, and as I also live in District 3 and am making the at-large appointment, she asked if I could ask the questions this
Absolutely.
evening.
I'm good with
So
that.
I'm gonna have 3 questions for you. A couple of them are 2-parters. So I'll give you the whole question, but if you need me to repeat any part, just let me know. And the first question that I have is, what are the qualifications and experiences that you would bring to the Surveillance Advisory Board, and what made you want to apply to this board specifically? And we may need you to move a little bit more into the mic. I think that's perfect.
My involvement in social justice and criminal justice and equitable rights and mental health. I've been involved with that at Turo for quite some time, and I also sit on the County Board of Education dealing with, we're the appellate board, so dealing with students' rights. Not only those that are in our community court schools, but all of those that have, I'll use the word disabilities, all right, and they have challenges in understanding the rights. All the time, parents don't understand what their rights are, and schools can infringe those rights. So being able to understand that, I've sat on multiple boards. I understand the process, the attention, the assessment, the mitigation, Robert's Rules of Order, Brown Act, and ethics. I live here. I've lived here more than probably all of you are old. And I've been involved at least 35, 40 years in my community, and I've served on many, we didn't used to call them commissions, but many previous boards for the city of Vallejo.
Thank you so much. So the next question I have is specific to the Surveillance Board. If you could share any knowledge you have of surveillance devices and thoughts that you have on the use of surveillance technologies by police specifically.
Well, in that criminal justice and mental health at Turo, there's a lot about working, having sat in with meetings with Judge Healy, lots of information about surveillance. I'm also a real estate broker, and I know the issues about having drones doing overhead pictures. I follow that because that's important to both my profession and my avocation. And also I had a friend, Naomi Young. I kind of followed behind her when she was serving, I'm not sure which one of these boards, but this one, okay. I attended a few meetings before, and she suggested that I should get involved. And the more I thought about it, and I came and sat in on the last meeting that the board had, I thought, well, maybe I can add value. If I can't add value, I'm not here for anything other than for value. That, and perhaps I can add some value to that.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that. The final question I have is, what do you see as the biggest challenge for local governments in the next 5 years with respect to surveillance technology? And the second part of it's going to be, what can we do to address that challenge? But first part is, what do you see as maybe a challenge we're facing with respect to these technologies?
Well, in general, remember, I see it from a different perspective. I'm a business owner, and I'm a local citizen. I'm a single woman, and I advocate for students as well. The biggest thing I see is the public really understanding the real purpose of surveillance moving forward in policing. Policing is not, I don't see it as it's going forward being what people are comfortable with, having lots of officers. That's not going to happen. And surveillance is going to be a key. And we have to understand that, and just attending some of the meetings about what's going on here, I dealt with surveillance in other areas regarding real estate. It's that we don't want surveillance, but we want safety. And I've observed that having surveillance helped to apprehend criminals right away that otherwise would not have happened. So as everything is right now going forward with technology, it's needful. And if I've got a drone over my neighborhood and I don't have a police officer, I'd rather have a drone. At least somebody's observing somewhere and can get a police officer to the spot, and they can follow that person around the block, that kind of thing. I see it, and I'm just getting a little philosophical, and I'm not going to dwell on that, but we're going into a new age, and you young people are of that age, and I'm still living, I'm still active, and I'm still going to be doing what I'm doing. So I believe it, I understand it, how to implement it. That is an issue. As anything with AI, you know, they're developing this off of AI. And AI is just a whole lot of thoughts put together trying to simulate a system when every city is different. So if there would be an AI putting together Vallejo surveillance, it would be particular to the issues in Vallejo. But overall, the issues have been very broad, trying to cover a lot, and that's why they don't work everywhere. And you do need a different kind of staff to understand utilizing or monitoring, if you will, and utilizing how to actually work it to make it work. And then educating the people, or actually, yeah, it's educating the people to know this is what it is. And we need to understand that it may be difficult to understand or see how you can get the kind of safety you desire, but it can be done. And it's a work in progress. It's not totally in place. It's a work in progress. I hope I answered you.
Yeah, thank you so much. I appreciate your thoughts. And again, we appreciate the interest and willingness to serve on the board. Again, it'll be Councilmember Lettaju's appointment, and we'll be making those appointments at our city council meeting on May 13th. So you'll hear back from us probably that day or shortly after that date.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you again.
Thank you for accepting
Yeah,
my application.
we appreciate the time you spent and that you came out this evening, and enjoy the rest of your evening. Is over, and we are going to move back to the Police Oversight and Accountability Commission, and we have our current commissioner John Lewis for District 6, who is up for reappointment, and we are going to, yeah, let's go ahead and invite him in. Good evening, Mr. Lewis. How are you doing? Excellent. All right. Well, we'll start by just thanking you again for your application, your interest in serving, and your service as to date on this commission. In its infancy and training, we truly do appreciate it. And I know we've met, but I'm Andrea Source, relatively new mayor. I'm joined by council members Gordon, Paul Mares, and Matias. And the way we've been doing the interviews for these positions is, since these are district appointments, the council member making the appointments will ask a series of questions, ask the interview questions. And in your case, since you're in District 6, that is going to be council member Gordon. So I'll turn it over to her.
Okay.
Good evening. Hi.
She's a spectator.
Hello, my name is Helen Marie, aka Cookie Gordon. As you know, I just recently was elected for District 6 as City Councilwoman, and I'm glad to have you here. And I appreciate you taking the time to want to serve again in this position. I will be asking you 4 questions, and if you need me to repeat them, please feel free to do so. So my first question to you is, what do you want to be it says, why do you want to be a commissioner for this particular?
Well, this is an issue that I've always.
I'm sorry, can you talk to the mic so the people on the internet can hear? On the mic, yeah, thank you.
Yeah, this is an issue that I've always been interested in. So that's why I applied for it originally. And obviously it's been a little frustrating that it hasn't gotten going as we had hoped. But, it's giving the citizens a voice in this important aspect of their city government is just very important.
Thank you. Thank you for that question, the answer. In what ways do you believe you can support the Vallejo Police Department in responding to needs of the community?
The frustration that we've had, since it's been so many, I don't know how long it's been, that the citizens need a voice. The citizens need to be able, and it's important for the police department to hear the citizens' concerns. And if we're going to, in an ideal world, the police department would respect the citizens of the community, and the citizens would respect the police department. And it's difficult to once that's fallen apart, it's difficult to get it back together. And this is an absolutely critical step in allowing the citizens to have a say in how the police respond to the citizens.
Thank you for answering that question. My next question is, please tell us, how do you believe racism affect the lives of people of color, and how you will deal with racism as a commissioner?
Look at the current news. Oh my God. I had an argument, had a debate with a friend a few years ago, an African American woman, young African American woman, and we were at a protest down in Oakland, and she was saying that in America, racism, 50% of the population is racist, and I says, oh my God, no, it's not. It's nowhere near that. And I was talking with that same person a couple of weeks ago, and I have to, and I've watched this. I have 2 African American nephews, and I've watched them go through. They're both in their mid-30s. One of them is currently a cop back in Massachusetts, and wonderful young men. And the youngest one was pulled over here in Vallejo by an officer, and because the officer was insisting on searching the car, and I was so proud of Rashad for standing up for his rights and just repeatedly saying no. And he was, when he showed up at my house later that evening, he was shaking. It was just he's a good kid. He might have had something in the car he didn't want to get found, but that's beside the point. Racism is rampant in our society. It's
Thank you for answering. And my last question is, please describe how you would be fair and impartial when considering police officer discipline matters as a commissioner.
You know, it's important to remember that the commission is not in the chain of command. You know, day-to-day issues with police officers are going to be handled by the sergeant, the lieutenant, the chain of command. Obviously, the commission is going to be at some point looking at, really looking at evidence, looking at body camera, footage and police statements and witness statements and those kinds of things. And just like when I was an EEO counselor, you have to look at both sides. You have to sit back and not prejudge. One of the things for years I've noticed, when I was in junior high school, we arrived at school and the police were out front, and some kids had broken into the school and trashed the office and got some keys, went into the cafeteria and made themselves lunch. And that night I was reading the paper, and it said that virtually every classroom was ransacked. And it was a real eye-opener to me that reporters that write stories, they're not witnesses. You have to not prejudge. You have to remain objective and not just read a story in the newspaper and get your knickers in a knot and think you know the answer. So that's critical to anybody on this commission.
Well, I want to thank you so much for your time. I want to appreciate the fact that you have been very patient with us throughout the time, and you still stuck in wanting to see the best. And I appreciate you taking this so serious that you want to commit again. And I appreciate your time. I look forward to working with you.
Thank you.
If you're selected. So we'll find out for sure May 13th, okay?
Okay.
Thank you so much. You have a wonderful evening.
All right, thank you. Have a good night.
Good night.
Commission, but we're going to move over to the Measure P Oversight Committee interviews, and we are going to continue with Councilmember Gordon in District 6. Our next applicant is Adjoa McDonald, and she's also behind the pole, but I believe she's here. We're ready. It's all right, good evening. Thank you for joining us. We'll let you get settled. All right. Well, welcome, Ms. McDonald. We so appreciate your interest in the commission, the time you spent on your application, and you joining us this evening. So we know each other, but I'm Andrea Source, relatively new mayor. I'm joined by council members Gordon, Palmares, and Matias, who you, I believe, may also know. We are conducting interviews for a few commissions this evening that do district-based appointments. So what we're doing is the council member who's making the appointment in that district is the one that will ask the interview questions. And in your case, since you're in District 6, I will turn it over to council member Gordon.
Hello, how are you doing today?
I'm
It's
good,
good to
thank
see you.
Good to see you too.
As you know, I'm Helen Murray, AKA Cookie Gordon, councilwoman-elect, just got elected, and I'm excited to be here, and I'd like to ask you a few questions. I'm going to ask you 3 questions, and if you'd like to afterwards, you can share a little, and if you need me to repeat anything, please feel free to do so.
Okay.
Okay. Why did you apply for Measure P Oversight Committee? And the second part to that is, what do you hope to accomplish by your participation?
I remember there was a lot of controversy over employing Measure P, and some of the concerns was that the funding wouldn't be spent appropriately. And so I feel like having spent a couple of years working with GVRD and seeing some of the challenges and some of the decision-making that goes into making decisions about how funding is spent, that I'd like to participate in making some of those choices, because I believe that I have experienced through education and as a teacher and as administrator, as well as in my work with Vallejo Project, a lot of decision-making that has been heart-based and balancing fiscal responsibilities with a sense of duty. And so that's a sense of morality, a sense of community input. And so that's what I'd like to bring to the Measure P committee.
Thank you. My second question is, what do you feel are some of the key issues facing the city in the next 5 to 10 years?
Well, I think there are opportunities for the city to maximize on their history and on the opportunity to engage people in historical entertainment. So I'm hoping that, you know, not only with the upcoming shipbuilding kind of opportunities that different people are working on, but also through waterfront development, that the city will engage in education of its people about its history, education of outsiders about the opportunity to learn about the city and the history the rich history that is here.
Thank you. My last question would be, which is also two-part, is tell us about your experience in working with a team like this committee or any other committees that you served. What did you learn from those experiences?
Well, I served with you on the Public Advisory Committee for Soul Trans, and I still serve on that committee. It's a great opportunity to hear from experts and to hear from the public and to kind of weigh the concerns of people who ride public transportation with kind of some bottom lines and some challenges, and try and weigh out something that would be reasonable and equitable for the city.
Thank you. So do you have anything you'd like to share about yourself that wasn't in the questions?
Let's see. I moved to Vallejo in 2003 out of college and bought a place here, and my personal experience really reflects kind of a lot of the challenges that I hear repeated about the possibility and the potential, and I really hope to help realize some of that potential through engagement and partnership as a part of this committee.
Thank you so much for taking the time out and valuing this opportunity. And we will know, we'll be making our selections on May 13th, and we'll inform you when that happens, if you've been selected.
Okay.
Thank you so very much, and remember, keep staying involved.
Thank you.
You have a
Appreciate
great
you saying
day.
that. Thank you.
Have a good one.
You too. Good night.
Take care. I do not see Vanessa Oden.
I see one person.
I need a,
Who's out there?
that's our friend. I think that's that woman that always comes and
Oh,
reads
yeah,
the
yeah,
prayer book.
she's with Palmeras.
Welcome. All right, so our next applicant this evening is going to be for the, and that's fine because we have time, which is great. So we have Measure P Oversight Committee applicant for District 4, Alita Santos.
Yes, that's right.
And so welcome. We want to start just by thanking you for your interest in serving on the commission and the time you spent in the application and for joining us this evening. So I know we know each other, but my name's Andrea Source. I'm the new mayor of Vallejo. I'm joined by council members Gordon, Palmares, and Matias. And we're conducting interviews this evening for our commissions which use district-based appointments. And so what we've been doing is the council member who makes that district's appointment asks a few questions. And in this case, since you're in District 4, I'll turn it over to council member Palmares.
Before that, can I thank everybody
Of course,
for
thank you.
accepting my application. It was
Yes.
really a big surprise for me because I only inquired about this oversight something and then Dawn told me to apply.
We're glad you applied. All right, I'll turn it over to Councilmember Palmares.
Thank you for applying.
You're welcome.
Before we begin, I'd like to preface the following. One, I will ask one two-part question, and you'll be allotted about 10 minutes to answer. And two, for the sake of transparency, I'd like to publicly state that I know you, Ms. Santos. And here's the question. In your opinion, what are the materially distinguishable characteristics between an appropriate and an inappropriate use of Measure P money? And what is your methodology for deciding on an item that blurs the line?
Yeah, thank you for that question. Actually, I've been in different organizations back in the Philippines, even though it's international, like the UNICEF and also the Open Government Partnership, which was launched 2011 by Obama in the UN Assembly. And I can see that because of my experience with these organizations, there should be a transparency. And I'm glad that your trust is trust and transparency. So I was thinking that this is really a good time for me to share my expertise, whatever it is, and also because every time I attend the council meeting, I always hear the public speakers talk about their frustrations. But for me, I see Vallejo in a different perspective, in God's eyes. The first time I stepped in Vallejo in November last year, I already see how beautiful Vallejo is, even though I haven't heard anything about Vallejo. But still, I still believe with your leadership, with your transparency, because that is your trust, and also for common sense or maybe the best education that I had is not only for academic, but also for the experiences I had in community development. I use the asset-based community development wherein we have to tap the resources within the community, and I know that that the leadership is up there and the community is here. But we should have a mindset to change the mindset, the paradigm shift of aligning it, the leadership and the community. Because as taxpayer, we should know also what's going on with the budget. I know because the first time I attended the council meeting, you're talking about the budget, and I am very impressed because you meticulously, you in every detail, you are talking about the budget, which I really appreciate because back in the Philippines, we do that also. Because I'm part of the bidding process, wherein the people there who are buying for the bidding, I was there as a witness. I'm the only one. And my signature is very powerful because it will not push through without my signature. And then we also have the program and planning, program implementation review, where I review all the budgets because I'm part of the bottom-up budgeting. And then also part of the alternative budget initiative where we are connecting with the different agencies, the national and the local agencies, and then we push through the sin tax. The sin tax is supposed to be allocated for health. The sin tax means the taxes are imposed to the cigarettes. And sad to say, because some corruption, we are still pushing it. Even though I'm here, I can see, because we have a network It is in the chat room. So even though I'm here, I can still contribute. And about the second question, about the methodology,
Yeah, your methodology for deciding on an item that blurs the line between an appropriate and inappropriate
yeah,
use of money.
because, I'm using my common sense with the guidance of God. I know this is about religion, but I still believe in the power of the Holy Spirit, that the Holy Spirit will guide me in this matter. And also, in decision-making, I do the pros and cons. And also to prioritize the project, like what is important and what is urgent. Important maybe because we have a lot of projects here, like the road safety, because I have seen a lot of manhole and also other public safety, like when I am involved with the Sparrow Project with the homeless, and also with the Pillar of Hope, where we minister to the ladies on the street, and I can see really that we have to do something, and the budget is very crucial, because if it is not intended to the right program, everything will be in the rail. So I still really praying and for God's wisdom for each one of us, for guiding you in your decision as well. And you always see me in the council meeting, and I already invited some people to pray for you. And I still believe that we have to change the mindset of the community, because they are always voicing out their frustration. But what can they do to help? It's not only the role and responsibility of the government, of the leaders, but we have also to do something. That's why I'm pushing for the asset-based community development, where we have to tap the resources of the community. And that's why when I was experiencing this betrayal, and when I was excluded, and also a feeling of rejection, because when I asked for if I can be of help, I was declined, because I love Vallejo very much, and as one, I want really to be of service, even though I will not be paid, because I'm always doing that without payment, because if you want to serve, there's no compensation at all, because you are serving from the heart. And that is what I'm doing even back in the Philippines, because I'm a missionary, although I set up an organization, which is Hope for the Foundation, and because of that, I earned that integrity with the local government and even for the national government, because we are dealing with the senators and congressmen and the local city mayors, because of my participation with the interagency, where we look into the program and services of the government, and then we look into also the budget, because we believe the budget should be intended for the project that is been in the planning. Because when the budget is not allocated to the certain budget and there is savings, it's not a good one. There should be no savings, because if there is saving, it means that the planning is poor. So if we have a good planning with the budget, we can utilize the budget wisely. So what else do you want to ask me? What else?
I have a follow-up question. So you mentioned professional experience in budgeting. Was that at the LGU or provincial or national?
It's all everything.
Everything?
National, because of the bottom up.
Mhm.
It's in the regional. And,
Regional, okay.
And the national, is the alternative budget initiatives, where we are connected with the different departments of the government. And we are proposing projects with funding also, but the money doesn't go to us. We just propose, we interact with different agencies, the health, especially the health, because although I'm not a health practitioner, I have a little knowledge about health, and also for the social environment and the social protection of the Department of Social Welfare. And also we have a lot of projects in the Philippines, like the 4Ps for the poor people. I don't know if you know that. And also for other initiatives that we have, I'm also connected with other agencies like the Muslim and also the indigenous people, because I want to hear what they want. Because we cannot do planning or budgeting if we don't know what they want. So that's why consultation with them is very important.
Thank you for your response. That's the only question I have. But
It's okay if you had asked more questions.
well, I can't. We're about to hit 10 minutes.
I'm
But
just
no, but
kidding.
it's a thank
I'm
you for
just
your
kidding.
response, and we will be making a decision on May 13th.
Yeah, I'll pray for you. Can I pray for you right now?
We do have to, yeah, we have to get to the next interview. We appreciate you. Thank
Thank you.
you. But I don't. We are ready.
Is Miss Odom here? Miss Odom? Yes, she is here. Come on in.
All right. So we are now back to staying with, back to District 6, but staying with Measure P oversight. We have Miss Vanessa Oden, and we'll let you get in and get settled.
If you feel comfortable.
Good evening.
I won't let many
All right,
questions.
good evening. So we want to start, Ms. Oden, thank you so much for being here and for your interest in the commission and your application. We truly appreciate it. And I know that we've met, but I'll introduce myself anyway. I'm Andrea Source, relatively new mayor. I'm joined by council members Gordon, Paul Mares, and Matias. We are conducting interviews this evening for 3 of our commissions that do district-based appointments. And so the way that we've been doing the interviews is the council member who's making the appointment will take the lead on asking questions. And in your case, for Measure P oversight, you are in District 6. So your council member and appointer will be council member Gordon, and I'll turn it over to her.
Thank you.
Good evening. How are you doing today?
I'm well. Thank you for having me tonight.
Well, thank you. As you know, I'm Helen Marie, AKA Cookie Gordon. I am the city councilwoman for District 6, and I'm giving you the option to be to respect if you want to choose to speak in English and in Spanish. That's up to you. However you feel comfortable. Why did you apply for Measure P Oversight Committee, and what do you hope to accomplish by your participation?
Thank you for your question. I applied for this position because I am a citizen of Vallejo. I see Vallejo people, I work here, I shop here, I live here, and I feel that it's important for us to be part of the community. And when looking at Measure P and the funds that can be used, being on that oversight committee is critical. It's important to make sure that the needs of our community, especially District 6, especially our underserved and traditionally marginalized communities, have the opportunity to have someone who can be an ear to them as well as vote in their best interest. Previously, when I lived in the city of Williams, I served on the Commission for Parks and Recreation. Also, previously, years ago, I was on an oversight committee for the United Way when visiting to local organizations and discussing funds and the way that they would be used. So for me, it's a chance to really be part of the heartbeat of Vallejo and also be involved in a way that really can help bring change to Vallejo and bring beauty to Vallejo, possibly bring public arts to Vallejo, beautiful sculptures, beautiful fountains, and also really deal with some of the things that we have in our community, like blight, addressing homelessness. I know that recently there was the fixing of the bridge and just what happened with that, but really being there, since I live here and I'm here all the time, to really be a voice for Vallejoans.
Thank you so very much.
You're welcome.
My next question is, what do you feel are some of the key issues facing the city in the next 5 to 10 years?
Great question. And I think that's something that we all are looking at. We know that the price of housing has gone up considerably across the Bay Area and has pushed into our area here. We have some changes with immigration and a lot of things that are affecting especially our Black and brown communities. So I really believe that it's critical to think about funding programs that will not only address right now, but also transition into the future. So it's not just about filling a pothole or a short-term function, but really thinking about ways that we can have longevity in the projects that we fund.
Thank you. I appreciate that answer. My next question to you, and this is a two-part. If you need me to repeat, feel free to ask. Tell us about your experience in working with a team like this or any other team. What do you feel that you've learned from that experience? Part 2 question.
That's a great question as well. So as I mentioned before, working on a commission in the Parks and Rec Commission in the city of Williamson, I was there. Very diverse team, and also a chance for everyone to be heard and for everyone to work together. There's a saying that iron sharpens iron, so where one person is strong, someone else can work. But also to be able to push as a collective against sometimes entities that might want to come to Vallejo and not be in the best interest, but work together to support the people of Vallejo and to be a listening ear, so be accessible, be approachable, and also to be accountable. Transparency is important, and for people to be able to know when you sit to vote that you're representing them.
Thank you. Is there anything you'd like to share about yourself that were not part of the question that you would like to share?
Sure. So I'm a mother and a wife here in Vallejo, so I see a lot of people on the day-to-day, whether I'm shopping on Plaza Drive or I'm over in Glen Cove, or I'm in Central Vallejo. People will say, I see her everywhere. I'm at the festivals, I'm at the outreaches. So I think that part of me, to be accessible, also being Afro-Latina, being in the intersection of Black and brown, really provides a unique experience and perspective for people to approach me and to say, hey, you know, have you considered this or have you considered that? Being open to ideas, and also having traveled to 12 different countries, seeing the beauty that Vallejo is, being on the waterfront and the beautiful things we can bring to Vallejo, and also address some very critical situations that we have here in Vallejo. So that's a little bit more about myself.
Thank you so very much for your time. We appreciate you appreciate and want to be part of the solution. And whatever happens, I hope that you continue to stay involved. We will notify you on May 13th when we make our selection. So again, hope you have a wonderful evening. And again, we appreciate you.
Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you very much. Enjoy the rest of your
Good
evening.
night. You as
District 1 POAC, we have Lewis Grant, who may be out there, and I'll wait for Dawn. And then we have another SAB at large, Alejandro Bras, who's also here. All right. Mr. Grant, good evening. Thank you for being here. All right, we'll let you get seated.
Everybody.
All right, good evening. We want to thank you so much for being here and for your interest in serving on one of our boards or commissions, your time that you spent filling out the application. So I'm Andrea Source, the relatively new mayor of Vallejo, and I'm joined here by council members Gordon, Palmares, and Matias. We are conducting We are conducting interviews this evening for a few of our commissions that do district-based appointments. And so we have you being considered for the Police Oversight and Accountability Commission in District 1, which is Councilmember Matias's district. And the way we've been doing it is that the appointing council member asks the interview questions. So I'm going to turn it over to Councilmember Matias.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Grant. Many thanks to you for the application and for your willingness to serve your community. My first question is one of three, is what qualities or experiences would you bring to the Police Oversight and Accountability Commission?
The only experience I could bring is life experience. You know, I've been involved with the police before.
You speak into the mic, please.
I've been involved with the police before. I've also, in my course of living here in Vallejo, have seen the struggles that they have too. So I'm on both ends of the fence. I would like to see a more community-based police force dealing with people and less crime, because things are going on around here that's, you know, I bought a home here in 2012 and I'm seeing it go. I haven't been experiencing too much because I've been in work, been working for years. I just retired in December.
Congrats.
So now that I'm retired, I'm seeing more, you know. So I would like to be a part of the solution instead of the problem.
Thank you for that, and congratulations on your retirement. My second question is the following. What is your approach to understanding the perspectives of community members from different backgrounds?
I mean, how can I put this? We're all in one world together, should be working together to create something that's more obtainable for everybody. The separation of people because of race, creed, color, situation like that is it's not workable. You know, I would like to see people more together, doing things together.
Thank you for that. And my final
Excuse me.
prepared question is, in what ways do you believe you can support the Vallejo Police Department in responding to the needs of the community?
Well, that's one thing that bridging gaps between community and policing. Also, I guess realizing that the police do need to go by the Constitution of the United States, and they should never turn towards that. And just people work together, community policing, walk-arounds, community, what they call them, where people have the barbecues in their neighborhoods,
yep.
Things like this, you know, people, police come in,
yep.
You know, interact with the people, you know, let's get to know each other, you know, not have a police officer that's from Texas come here and police people that's here. You know, let's get some community people to get in and get to know their people. Maybe it'd be less crime.
Thank you for that. And then my final question to you is a question we've all been asking folks participating in this process. Is there anything you would like to share with us and with the rest of the council that perhaps you didn't have an opportunity to share as part of any of the questions I've asked you this evening?
Well, like I said, I've worked most of my life, but the last company I was with that I retired from, Biorad Laboratories, we do a lot of community projects, community works from cleanups to science projects with children, and this is the 5K bike runs, and we do this. This is something that was embedded in our company, and through going through that, I've learned that community is the essence of everything. You know, we need to have community. We need to respect community and be able to build on community. I see a lot of things around here that could be happening, and I wish they would. My wife, she's a professional singer. She sings all over this area, and there's a whole lot of places that really could use some different type of outlines, musical locations, you know, just where people can gather. And I see that happening in Vallejo. I moved here because I saw that there was a growing, you know, I don't know how it was in the past, but when I moved here, I saw that it could be a growing situation. And I'm still looking forward to seeing that.
I couldn't agree with you more. And I can tell you we're very committed to making that happen in the next couple years. So that is all we have in terms of the questions that we're asking this evening of you. I want to thank you really profoundly for applying to join this very important commission for our community. We're going to be making decisions as a body on all of these commissions, all of these vacancies on May 13th. Okay. And you should be hearing back from us shortly thereafter. I hope you have a good rest of your weekend.
You too.
Take care.
Thank you so
Enjoy
much.
your evening.
Take care. For our final applicant, we're back over to me. We've got a Surveillance Advisory Board applicant for the at-large position, Alejandro Bras. Welcome. Good evening. Thank you so much for joining us, not just for your time this evening, but for the time you spent on your application and for your willingness to serve on this commission. And so I know we've met, but I'm Andrea Source, now Mayor of Vallejo. I'm joined by Council Members Gordon, Palmares, and Matias. And the four of us this evening are conducting interviews for our commissions that do district-based appointments. So what we've been doing is the council member making the appointment asks the interview questions, and in your case, you've applied to the Surveillance Advisory Board. What district do you live in again?
I'm in 5.
5, okay. And so you would be for the at-large appointment, so I'll have a few questions for you this evening.
Sounds great.
And so I'll have a couple of them are 2 parts. If at any point you need me to repeat one of the parts, just let me know. And the first question that I have is, what are your qualifications and experience that you would bring to the Surveillance Advisory Board, and why did you specifically want to serve on this board?
Yeah, sure. So I'll take the
And we
second
might need
part.
you to scoot forward a little,
Oh,
or
can you not
move the
hear me?
mic back. Yeah, we want it to pick up online.
Oh, gotcha.
It's a little tricky.
So the second part first, I wanted to get involved. I lived in Oakland for many years and never felt the desire to get involved in city politics, and I moved here 3 years ago and immediately felt like I knew every neighbor and I wanted to be involved. So I knew I wanted to get involved with the city, and I was looking through the commissions, and the surveillance one fit my expertise perfectly, actually. So I come from a legal background. I was a lawyer for many years at Morrison Forrester in San Francisco. And before that, I was at Stanford Law, where I studied national security issues and privacy issues. So the Surveillance Oversight Board strikes a lot of the interests I have personally, as well as my expertise from my legal background. And actually before that as well, I studied due process issues in undergrad, wrote my thesis on detainment and detention issues. So it really is something I've had an interest in for decades.
Thank you very much. We appreciate it. So the next question I have is, if you could please share your knowledge of surveillance devices being used by police and any thoughts that you have on the use of those devices.
Sure. So I'm pretty aware of what the Vallejo Police Force is doing now. In general, with I'd say one of the issues that's come up recently that I have a lot of interest in is the cell tower faking devices, as that's being used at a federal level as well, very recently for detention of people to be deported. So that's sort of been on my very recent radar. You know, cameras everywhere has always been an issue. License plate readers, very common. Drones and increasing availability and the technology in drones has expanded exponentially in the past decade. So the use of drones and in what situations is something that I've followed pretty closely.
Thank you. And the final question I have is, what do you see as the biggest challenge for local governments in the next 5 years in the area of surveillance technology? And the second part of this question is going to be, what can we do as a city to address those challenges?
So I would say with respect to cities and localities generally, I think one of the big challenges is how much these technologies have grown and the availability and cost of them has decreased, or the availability has increased. So that's a real challenge for localities as they come across these technologies that look great without a real appreciation for what they can do for the city, as well as the costs that they can impose on the city and the people who live in there. So I think the availability of technologies is really a challenge. For Vallejo in particular, I think it's actually less sort of the availability and more just oversight of what we have going on. I know a lot of technologies recently implemented by Vallejo have been somewhat controversial, so making sure they're used wisely. And we have protocols in place to make sure they're used in specific circumstances that make sense for that use.
Thank you so much. Really appreciate, again, your time and your thoughtful answers. We are going to be making all of our appointments at the May 13th council meeting, so you'll hear from us that day or shortly after. And again, we're just so grateful for your willingness to serve
I would love to.
and
Thank
your
you.
contributions to the community. So thank you again.
Appreciate it.
Enjoy
Thank
the
you
rest of
all.
your evening.
Have a good evening.
And however it goes, make sure you just stay involved.
I will, absolutely.
Thank you.
And with that, that is 20 interviews down for this group. Thank you to my colleagues for your perseverance, and thank you to the applicants. Absolutely outstanding group of folks applying to serve in our city. So thank you, thank you. And with that, I'm going to adjourn our meeting at 8:25 p.m.
Good night, everyone.